fought on the side of Amir al-Mu'minin in the Battle of Siffin. But still the greed was there. This greed only disclosed itself 20 years later. Right now, me and you, on the Zahir, we may all be abiding Muslims. But there may be a love of wealth, a love of prestige that I may have. But it's not seen before you. But that will disclose itself sooner or later, and it will lead to my spiritual downfall. Everyone knows themselves. We don't judge people by just looking at their zahir. If it has a good zahir, alhamdulillah, and you have to always imagine that their batin is also good. If the zahir is bad, Imam Rida alayhi salam, you have to still say to yourself, their batin may be better than mine. These are prescriptions that we have. You have to say their batin may be better than mine. And in general, you shouldn't even judge others when you look at them, whoever they are. You have to spend your time in judging yourself. If you have time in judging others, that's a very bad sign. Judging others in whatever capacity. You evaluate yourself. How much do I judge others to myself? How many times do I say, he is a bad person, a weak person, I am stronger, I am better? You're wasting yourself. وَمَا أُهِلَّ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ بِهِ. And also prohibited for you is when you dedicate in the name of other than Allah. I'll speak more about that in a minute. Then the verse goes through 4 classes of animals. وَالْمُنْخَنِقَةُ وَالْمَوْغُوذَةُ وَالْمُتَرَدِّيَةُ وَالنَّتِيهَةُ. These 4 classes of animals, we don't have a problem. We refrain from consuming them. But do we refrain from the batini meaning of these 4 groups of animals, making us animalistic? Al-munkhaniqatu is the animal that is strangled to death. Al-mawghudatu is the animal that is beaten to death. If an animal is strangled to death, we can't consume it. If an animal is beaten to death, we can't consume it. It's haram. Okay, that's not an issue for me and you. But what is the batini meaning that we have to refrain from? And the Urafa have said, there are some people who strangle themselves and beat their souls with Islamic etiquettes. They burn themselves, they burden themselves, they strangle the nafs, they beat the nafs with Islamic etiquettes, but through riyah. Riyah, either by looking, or by hearing. Sometimes I want to be seen by others, and I do these Islamic etiquettes so that others see me doing, for example, a lot of mustahabbat. I'm burdening myself with doing a lot of mustahabbat, a lot of Islamic rituals. I mean, the wajibat are wajibat, it's okay to do that. But some people, they strangle their souls and they beat their souls to be seen by others in a good light. Or sum'ah is like riyah, but sum'ah is to be heard. For example, you speak in a particular way so that others think higher of you. You want to be heard by others or seen by others so they think better of you. You're not doing it for Allah's sake. Otherwise you would do it in private more. Try and do the mustahab actions in private. The soul can be deceived very easily. Some people may do Salatul Layl every night, and then they disclose it. It's very difficult not to be deceived. It's very difficult not to be complacent with oneself or self-conceited. You are like that animal which is strangled or beaten to death. How that animal was haram to eat physically, you've made your soul haram from a tariqah point of view. That animal is haram from a sharia point of view. Your soul is haram from a tariqah point of view. Do you know when you slaughter an animal, it looks just like the animal that you've beaten to death or strangled to death. So on one side you have an animal slaughtered properly. The other side you have an animal beaten to death. These two look the same. You can't tell. Also, people who burden their souls with Islamic etiquettes, legitimate ones, okay? There are two types. Some of them, they do it with riyah. Others, they do it, but there's no riyah. If you do it with riyah, your soul becomes illegitimate, becomes haram. The soul, just like the animal, becomes haram to consume. Look, now this, the enemy camp of Imam Hussein suffered from this. It was all riyah. It was all riyah what they did. Their fasting, Shim would fast every day. He even fasted on the 10th day, Ashura. But it wasn't for Allah though. It's become very fashionable these days to disclose your actions to others. Every time you do a good action, don't rush into disclosing it to people. Speak less. Sometimes speaking less entails you disclosing the ego less, and it's good. Control the mouth. Try to make more of a one-to-one relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The third group of animals which are al-mutaraddiyatu, those that are thrown from a height to death. And finally, an-natihatu, those animals that are gored, horned to death. These are haram also. You can't consume them. When do we become haram from a tariqah point of view? When we have a superiority complex. We think we're more superior to others. We have to be very careful. We have to be very careful. When you have a superiority complex and you think in whatever aspect you are better than someone else, you've thrown yourself to death. And in the same way that animal is haram to consume, it's illegitimate, your soul becomes contaminated from a tariqah point of view. You know, the imams had many slaves. Even before Islam there were slaves. But slavery in those days was different. Prisoners of war against Islam would be taken as slaves. The imams, Imam Sajjad and many others, had many slaves. It's not like the slavery of today or with Black America. It's different. These were prisoners of war became slaves. Then the imams would educate the slaves and then would free the slaves, but they would educate them first. Once the Imam Sajjad alayhi salam called one of his slaves. The slave didn't reply. And he kept on calling him, and then all of a sudden the slave from behind said yes. He turned around and said, why weren't you answering me? The slave replied that, I knew you wouldn't get angry, so I said, why reply to him now? Let me walk towards him and reply to him then. This slave had no fear of his master. The Imam had no superiority complex even to someone who is Allah's creature, maybe of a lesser spiritual status, but he never saw himself higher than that creature. We shouldn't even see ourselves higher creation-wise, than animals. But if you have this, that I am better than someone, it's very difficult. No one is saying money is bad. No one is saying a house is bad, a car is bad, a job is bad. But these things have the potential to make you acquire this superiority complex. The potential is there. You can use it in a very good way. Imam Hassan, whose birthday we passed just yesterday or the day before, alayhi salam, he gave Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa he gave away all his wealth more than once during his lifetime. Look. Now, I'm not saying for you to do that, but if you had the capacity to give away your house and your family would be okay about it, and you wouldn't cause any burden on the family, do you have that capacity? Because he knows that nothing is his. This my house, he never makes that attribute, that mental construct, that pseudo attribute. He gives it away. He once saw a black slave give food to a dog, and he inquired as why the black slave did that, Imam Hassan alayhi salam. The slave said, well, this dog has a spirit, I'm embarrassed to eat and that dog not to eat. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, when he saw this attribute, he gave one of his gardens to that slave and freed the slave. Why? Because he said he's ready. He's a good Muslim. He's going to be the source of a lot of benefit. And me and you, let's say we come across someone who society deems as of a lower socio-economic status, but you recognize this, they have a good attribute. How much are we willing to give them? And when animals gore or horn oneself to death, how do we do that in a batini, tariqa sense? That's when we argue with one another. We keep on arguing, debating. Usually these arguments and debates in the family, outside the family, it's all a battle of the ego. You want yourself to win the argument. Sometimes the person has no idea what they're talking about, but they make their maximal effort to have their point proven because of that ego. When you keep on arguing with one another, you stop. You be the one to stop early, but stop in a very concealed manner. Don't say, for example, oh, you are drowned in your ego, I don't want to speak with you anymore. Not like that. But you be the first one to stop your soul from aggravating its ego. So you see, all these animals, they were haram to consume. But on a batini sense, all of them are representing a state of the soul which is illegitimate for you to fill yourself with. And this is important. This has to be incorporated. These batini instructions of the Zahiri prescriptions. And then the verse continues, وَمَا أَكَلَ السَّبُعُ إِلَّا مَا ذَكَّيْتُمْ. Also haram for you is that which predators consume. Save that which you can purify. For example, if a predator hunts an animal, and by the time you come to the animal is still living. You have time to slaughter it and eat it. But if the animal was killed by the predator, then no. it's haram. The predator has consumed it. It's haram for you. But if you had time to purify it and slaughter it Islamically, it would be okay. Okay, that's the zahir. The batini meaning, who are the predators of society? You know, although this is my own understanding here, that these corporations today, that the top percentage who have the wealth of the majority of the country, it doesn't matter in America, in Pakistan, wherever you are, it's a global thing today, capitalism. You see a percentage who are ruling the corporations, they have a lot of control over the wealth of the masses and of the nation. These people are very greedy. These are the predators of society. And the things that they feed you, you are precipitating and increasing this predator attribute of theirs. What they are feeding you, don't consume, don't aggravate, don't stimulate or enhance these predator attributes of theirs. Save that much which is your basic necessity. You have no choice, you want to live. There is no other choice for you to continue living. Okay, but don't overdo it. Or for example, وَمَا ذُبِحَ عَلَى النُّصُوبِ, animals sacrificed on altars. Okay, they would sacrifice the animal for idols. They would sacrifice the animal for idols on the stone altars. Me and you, we sacrifice our souls for idols. But idols doesn't have to be only a physical idol. Whenever you use Allah as a means to something, you are sacrificing yourself for an idol. You are burdening yourself for an idol. For example, this is the whole concept of concealed shirk. It's not haram from a Sharia point of view, but it's haram from a tariqah point of view. Whenever you use Allah as a means to something, it's concealed shirk. You're a mushrik. In chapter 12, it reads, وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. Most believers of Allah are mushrik, but not mushrik in the open sense. They don't say this is Allah, this is Allah. They are mushrik, and they have idols. They are mushrik. They associate with Allah in the concealed, irfani, tariqa, akhlaqi way, where they use Allah as a means to something. For example, you give charity, for example, to relieve your burden. For example, you or a family member, they are ill. You give charity so that the illness goes. That's also an example of shirk. It's not haram from a Sharia point of view, but you're a mushrik. Because here Allah, sometimes someone gives charity for Allah's sake, period. For the sake of Allah. But sometimes someone gives charity so that this illness goes. Okay? They're using Allah as a means for the illness to go. Allah is a means, it's not a goal. Allah isn't the objective, it's not the ends. Allah is the means. You're abusing Him. You're using Him as a means to something else. Allah has to be the goal, irrespective of whether the illness goes or not. You give charity for Allah's sake. Doesn't matter if the illness goes away or not. Or people do Salatul Layl because they've read traditions that it increases their livelihood, their sustenance, their beauty, and they do Salatul Layl for that. Look, they're using Allah as a means to something. If you look closely in your lifestyle, reading the Quran, reading ziyarat, and so on and so forth, you see that you are drowned, and you're doing these, you're sacrificing yourself, but you're doing it for idols. Whatever makes you use Allah as a means to that thing is an idol. Giving charity then becomes your idol. Reading the Quran can become an idol. And in this sense, the Quran says most of you are mushrik, in the concealed shirk way. The battle against shirk wasn't only a battle of those who say this is God, this is God, this is God. No, that wasn't an issue. The major issue with shirk was this, concealed shirk. And that's very difficult. And we are drowned in it. Even small things like you invite someone to your house, okay, but they don't invite you back, you get disappointed. Because you didn't invite them for Allah's sake. You invited them for another gain. It may be a worldly gain, it may be a gain in the hereafter. Some people may do salat to go to heaven. It's okay. It's okay, it's not haram. Some people do salat not to go to hell. It's okay. And this is the way the Imams taught us to start off with. But over years of practice, it has to lead to you doing salat for Allah's sake, period, irrespective of whether you go to heaven or hell. When Amirul Mu'mineen in Du'a Kumail says, if I am in hell, how am I going to be distanced from you? This is what he means. To do things for Allah's sake. Doesn't matter whether you go to heaven or hell. But you did this action for Allah's sake. It's very difficult. If you manage to do it once in a lifetime, you will prosper in the hereafter. Only once in a lifetime. To do something for Allah's sake. How can you evaluate yourself? For example, when you do something for Allah's sake, someone did you wrong and you forgave that person. They stole from you, or they borrowed and they never gave it back. And you said, Allah, I will forgive them for your sake, period. If that's the case, you will never mention this to other people. You will never belittle that person as if you did them a favor. You will never disclose this. This was something you did purely for Allah's sake. You have to do an action for Allah's sake, that even if, assuming you were to go to hell and the angels would come to you in hell and say, do you want to go to heaven? And you say yes. And they say, that good action that you did on that day to that person and no one got to know about it, you give that action to us, sell it to us, we'll take you to heaven, you will still say no. You're in hell because you may have done more bad than good. You're in hell to start off with. But even in hell, that one action you truly did for Allah's sake, you wouldn't be ready. You say, that was for Allah. I'm never going to. I'm ready to burn more. But that was for Allah. I'm not going to give that to anyone. One action in a lifetime, if you manage to do it, it's good. And the earlier you manage to do it, it will be easier to do the second action, the third action. But it's very difficult. You have to be spiritually prepared. It's not something that you do and you share with others. Oh, I forgave that person. I paid for this hospital. I paid for that. This is only for prestige and honor. You're fooling yourself. It's good to give to an orphanage, a hospital, everything. But do it for Allah's sake. That only Allah knows about it. Here you'll be growing. Okay, I think my time has passed. There were many other things I wanted to mention, but I'll stop here. Inshallah, I'll recite more dhikr musibat tomorrow, inshallah. But since some of you wanted me to recite up 2 minutes. What happened in Karbala also, there's a zahir and a batin. Crying is very good. But yet see, why are you crying? Is it for Allah's sake or not? That's one issue. But something happened in Karbala which is very important. Because Karbala is different to everything else. It's as if Islam was safeguarded eternally. The Holy Messenger established a government, but Islam wasn't safeguarded. Even after Ghadir, you saw what happened. Even at the time of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, Islam wasn't safeguarded. So many enemies. To safeguard Islam, Karbala safeguarded it. The cause of Islam was safeguarded, was preserved until the end. In the Quran, there are verses where, for example, Lady Maryam, chapter 19, verse 23, قالت يا ليتني مت قبل هذا. When she said, if only I would die before all this. She wanted to die. Or why? Was it a weakness of her iman? No. They made false accusations against her in relation to giving birth and being pregnant. She thought with these allegations she was ma'soom. She feared the cause of religion. Allah assigned her responsibility amongst the people. She was ma'soom. She saw the cause of religion. She feared that the cause of religion would be compromised and that she failed in this regard. And she said, if only I would die but not see Islam being compromised. Nabi Musa alayhi salam, when he hit the Coptic soldier to save the other soldier, and then the Coptic soldier died, the news got out. He said, Qala Rabbi inni dalamtu nafsi. I've wronged my soul. I've done wrong. He didn't sin. He had to do what he did. But he feared, because he was in occultation, that now the news has come out, his cause would be compromised. And he feared this. And he said, oh Allah, forgive me. I've wronged my soul. Not because he did a sin. He feared for the cause of the religion. The same we see with the Imams, with the Holy Messenger, with Amir al-Mu'mineen. You saw what he had to do with Imam Hassan, but with Imam Hussein in Karbala, he underwent very serious burdens, one after the other. But he never said that if only I wasn't here, or I've wronged myself, or the cause was compromised. Because in Karbala, actually, the cause was never compromised. The cause was fully fulfilled. Yes, it meant him undergoing all those massacres, one after the other. But he was happy for Islam. He was happy that all these was undergoing. And that's why one of the narrators of the enemy camp, Hilal ibn Nafi, said, as I was seeing him engrossed in the blood, on the floor, lifeless, but he was always, moment after moment, he was becoming more and more luminous. He was happy because the cause of Islam is now safeguarded. With Karbala, something which none of the previous prophets from Adam could safeguard, he was the inheritor of all the prophets before. He managed to do something for Islam that no one could do before, and that was the safeguarding of Islam, making haqq and batil clearly differentiated, clearly clarified, something that was mixed in the time of Imam Hassan with Muawiyah, was mixed in the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen, was mixed in the time of the Holy Messenger with all the munafiqeen. But here he clearly segregated it. So sometimes in Karbala, when you listen to the maqtals,